Okay, so usually when we sit down to do one of these deep dives, I've got, I don't know, a stack of quarterly reports or maybe a dense academic paper in front of me.
Right, the usual dry suspects.
Yeah, exactly. But today feels entirely different.
It really does.
They're looking at a PDF that honestly looks like it was ripped right out of a musician's spiral-bound notebook. That and an audio transcript. We're actually analyzing a song today.
It's definitely a departure from our normal material, but I mean, the mission remains exactly the same.
We take the source, we break it down.
Exactly. We try to find that hidden narrative. The song is called Here I Am, and it was written by Misti back in 2010. And honestly, treating a song lyric like a historical document, it reveals so much more than just casually listening to it in the car.
That is exactly what I was thinking when I started reading through this. We aren't just reacting to a catchy melody here.
No, not at all.
We have two very distinct documents. There's the written lyrics sheet, the PDF, which has all these fascinating little scribbles and metadata, edits, that sort of thing. And then we have the transcript of what was actually sung on the audio recording.
And those two things don't always match up.
Which is the best part.
It is. That's where the real detective work comes in. The gap between what is written on the page and what actually comes out of the singer's mouth. That is where the human element lives.
It tells you about intent, right? Or hesitation.
Right. And ultimately, the real story behind the song.
So let's look at the mission of this track for a second. Because on the surface, you look at it and think it's a ballad.
Sure.
But when you read the text, this isn't a love song. It's not a breakup song either. It feels more like a survival guide.
That's a great way to put it.
It's about this massive narrative arc of taking regret and somehow transforming it into gratitude.
It's really about the geometry of redemption, if you want to call it that. The central argument Mr. Flowers is making here is that you basically cannot get to the destination without taking a wrong turn first.
The backward step.
Exactly. It's about how the backward step is, ironically, the only way forward.
But before we get into the heavy lyrical analysis, I really want to set the mood.
Oh, the metadata.
Yes, because the PDF gives us some technical specs that I think provide incredible context for you as the listener. It lists the key as C, which, pretty standard, but then it lists the tempo. It literally says tempo, 66 beats per minute.
66 DPM.
Now, I am not a professional musician by any stretch, but I tapped that out on my desk before we started recording. And
Crawl.
It is so slow. It's a crawl.
It really is. I mean, to put it in perspective for you, a resting heart rate for a healthy adult is usually somewhere between 60 and 100.
Okay.
So 66 BPM is practically a resting heartbeat.
Wow.
It's calm.
Yeah.
It is definitively not the tempo of anxiety, and it is certainly not a party anthem.
It feels deliberate. Like if you were going to tell a story this heavy, you simply can't rush it. You can't hide behind some fast-driving drum beat.
Exactly. A tempo like that demands patience from the listener. It basically forces you to sit in your chair and wait for the next word.
Yeah.
It suggests right off the bat that this is a deeply reflective piece. It's a ballad in the truest sense. A story set to music where the words are doing all the driving, not the rhythm section.
So we're sitting in this slow 66 BPM heartbeat, right? And then she hits us with the opening lines. And they aren't exactly welcoming.
No, they are pretty stark.
She sings, I've been down a road I hope you never travel. Seen a side of life I hope you never see.
It's an immediate establishment of authority.
Right.
She's looking right at you and saying, I have been somewhere you haven't. But notice the tone there.
It's not bragging.
Not at all. It's highly protective. I hope you never travel. She's positioning herself almost like a scout who went ahead into the dangerous territory and just barely came back to warn the rest of us.
It totally reminds me of those old antique maps where they draw sea monsters or dragons at the edge of the known world.
Here be dragons.
Yes. She's saying, I went to where the dragons are, and trust me, you do not want to go there. But then, and this is the part that literally stopped me in my tracks reading the PDF, she immediately contradicts that protective instinct.
And this is the core paradox of the entire song.
Right. Because she sings, but I'll never regret any backward step. When I thought I was going right, I was really going left.
Let's just chew on that for a second. I'll never regret any backward step.
It goes against everything we're taught.
Completely. In our culture, and really in basic human psychology, regression is the enemy.
Yeah.
If you are in recovery, a backward step is a relapse. If you are in your career, a backward step is a demotion.
Right.
We are hardwired to deeply regret backward motion.
Totally. Like, if I realize I'm driving the wrong way down the highway, I don't just keep driving and say, well, this is just part of the journey.
Right, you don't embrace it.
No. I panic, I pull an illegal U-turn. But
Yeah.
she is flat out saying she doesn't regret it. Why?
It comes down to the second half of that thought. When I thought I was going right, I was really going left. And she clarifies this later when she says, it turned out left was the right way to get me here.
Ah,
She is playing with the directional metaphor here. She's essentially realized that the map she was using for her life was held upside down. The wrong turn, the deviation to the left. That was actually a completely necessary navigational adjustment.
so you're saying she couldn't have arrived here, like at this place of peace she's currently at, if she hadn't gone left first?
Precisely. If she had stayed on the path she assumed was right, she would have completely missed the actual destination.
Wow.
It's a retroactive validation of failure. She's looking back at her worst mistakes and saying, those weren't mistakes. That was the route.
That is a wildly comforting thought,
Very.
but also kind of terrifying, right? Because you don't know that at the time. You only figure that out when you look back.
And that's the catch. You have to actually survive the left turn to be able to appreciate it.
Okay, speaking of surviving that turn, I really want to bring up the first major discrepancy we found between the two documents, because this is where the detective work gets super fun.
I was hoping we'd get to this.
In the written PDF lyric sheet, verse 1 describes her past like this. It says, "The pages of my mind tell the story of a girl who wandered aimlessly along.
Wandered aimlessly along.
But when you listen to the audio transcript and you hear the actual recording, that is absolutely not what she's saying.
But it's not.
She sings of a girl who wandered aimlessly alone.
It is a one-word change. Just a couple of letters. Along versus alone. But the emotional weight of those two specific words is completely different.
Right. I mean, wandered aimlessly along sounds like, I don't know, a hobbit.
The Hobbit, sure.
It sounds like you're just taking a casual walk in the woods without a specific destination. It's almost whimsical. Oh, I'm just wandering along.
Exactly. Along implies simple movement through physical space. But alone, that describes a fundamental state of being. Wandered aimlessly alone. Now suddenly, the focus isn't just on the lack of geographical direction. It's on the profound lack of human connection.
Why do you think she changed it? Or, well, I guess, why do you think she sang it differently than she originally wrote it down?
My working theory, along, fits the rhyme scheme or the written meter much better on paper. It's a safe filler word.
Right. It looks good on the page.
But in the moment of actual performance, standing in that recording booth, along, just didn't feel true to the experience.
Yeah.
Alone is the harsh truth of that particular memory. When you are on that road she hopes you never travel, the defining characteristic isn't that you are moving. It's that you are completely isolated.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It feels almost like a subconscious slip of the tongue that reveals the actual trauma. She wasn't just a little lost. She was totally solitary.
Exactly.
And that isolation sets up the chorus so perfectly. Because if the core problem in verse 1 is being alone, then the solution in the chorus has to be presence.
And that is exactly where the song pivots. The chorus is the grand transition from the pages of the mind, which is the memory of being isolated, to the solid reality of the present moment, hence the title.
Here I am.
Here I am.
It's such a grounding phrase. It's not there I was, it's here I am.
It actively claims the space. After all that painful wandering left and right, she has finally planted a flag.
Now, the lyrics in the chorus get explicitly theological, which is interesting. She talks about thanking God for his undeserving mercy, or, well, she sings it as undeserved in the audio.
Right.
And she says she is whole again because he never left me. But then we get to, honestly, my absolute favorite part of this entire deep dive.
I know exactly what you're going to say, the debate.
The hand versus love debate.
I had a strong feeling you're going to zero in on this. It is the most fascinating marginal note in the entire PDF document.
Okay, so you listening, here is exactly what we're looking at on the page. In the PDF lyric sheet, the line is written as, his love was always there, gently guiding me back to his throne. But right next to the word love, there's a little parenthetical note written in that says, changed from hand.
So we actually get to see the drafting history in real time. Originally, the lyric was, his hand was always there, and the songwriter literally crossed it out or typed over it and decided to update it to, his love was always there.
Which kind of makes sense, right? Like, love is a much broader concept. It feels more poetic. Hand can feel a little bit, I don't know, too literal.
Hand is definitely anthropomorphic. It assigns God a literal physical body part, whereas love is this vast spiritual force. So you can see why, sitting at a desk, The writer decided love was the elevated, better word.
And this is the big reveal for the listener.
Yeah.
When you check the audio transcript, what does she actually sing?
She sings his hand.
She went right back to the original draft. She completely ignored her own editorial note. Why? Why go back to hand when you specifically took the time to write a note to change it to love?
This is where we have to dive into the psychology of the singer versus the writer. The writer is sitting in a quiet room at a desk, trying to be profound and poetic. They think love is a more universal, mature concept. But the singer is standing in the vocal booth, actively channeling that raw feeling of being aimlessly alone.
Oh, wow. And when you're aimlessly alone, you don't want a concept.
No.
You want a literal hand.
Bingo. Love is abstract. You can't physically hold on to love when you're stumbling in the dark. But a hand,
That's real.
that is tactile, that is grip, that is immediate safety. His hand was always there, implies a very active physical intervention. If you are literally falling off a cliff, you don't want someone to stand at the top and shout, "I love you."
Right. You want them to reach down and grab your shirt.
Exactly. You want a hand.
That is such a powerful distinction. It's like her gut instinct completely overrode her editorial intellectual brain. The smart choice was love, but the visceral emotional choice was hand.
And look at the verb that immediately follows it. Gently guiding me. You guide someone with a hand. It connects the physical imagery so much better than the abstract idea of love guiding you.
It also really softens the blow of the whole backward step thing we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If a hand was guiding her the whole time, then even when she was going quote-unquote left, she wasn't actually let go.
Which brings us to the ultimate result of all this intervention. She ends the chorus by saying she is now without a care. She has gone from dragging herself down that heavy, dark road to being as light as a feather.
But the song isn't over yet. We have to talk about verse 2, because if verse 1 was all about the physical journey, the road, the steps, the physical wandering, verse 2 goes straight into the mental state. And honestly, this is where the writing gets a little spooky.
It definitely takes a sharp turn into the atmospheric here.
The lyrics are, "The shadows held the silent ones who watched me."
I absolutely love this line because of how incredibly ambiguous it is. The silent ones.
Who are they? It sounds like a horror movie setup. The silent ones who watched me.
The source text deliberately doesn't tell us. And that ambiguity is entirely the point.
How so?
Well, think about it. When you are in a really dark place, mentally, emotionally, you often feel constantly observed. You feel judged.
Paranoia.
Yes. Are the silent ones literal demons? Are they angels who are just refusing to intervene? Or are they just the heavy memories of all the people you've disappointed in your life?
It's the silence that makes it so creepy to me. If they were yelling at her, she could at least argue back.
Right.
But they are just watching from the shadows. It validates that intense paranoia you feel when you're sitting at rock bottom. You feel like a spectacle.
But look at what she does with that incredibly creepy image immediately after. She acknowledges the shadows, she acknowledges the watchers, and then she delivers the biggest, most profound reframing of the entire song.
Oh, this part is brilliant. She sings, "Dark days were just their wings covering over me."
This is the moment. This is the ultimate cognitive shift of the piece.
She takes dark days, which, let's be real, usually means crippling depression, blindness, fear, and she turns that darkness into wings.
Think about the biological imagery of wings covering something. A mother bird covers her chicks with her wings to keep them safe. What happens under there?
It gets pitch black.
It's completely dark. You can't see the sun. You can't see the world. But why is it dark?
Because you're being protected from a predator.
Exactly. The darkness isn't a dungeon. It's an incubator. She is looking back at the absolute worst time of her life, the time when the silent ones were watching her from the shadows, and she is saying, I thought I was being buried, but actually I was being planted, I was being covered.
That is so tough to do, to look at your own severe trauma and say, this was actually a form of protection. That takes some serious mental gymnastics.
It does, but it is completely consistent with her core theme. Remember verse 1. Left was actually right. Now here in verse 2. Darkness was actually shelter. She is systematically taking every single negative element of her past and revealing it to be a positive, necessary part of the grand design.
She follows that up right after with, those unexpected twists of fate were God's way of keeping me on the straight and narrow.
Once again, the paradox. Usually a twist takes you off the straight and narrow path. If the road twists, it is by definition not straight anymore.
But she says the twists were the actual method used to keep her straight.
It suggests that if her life had gone according to her own plan, a perfectly straight line, she would have ended up in the entirely wrong place.
Yeah.
The twists of fate, the accidents, the horrible surprises, the bad luck, those were actually guardrails bouncing her back toward the
I
center.
really love that image. We always think of a twist of fate as something that ruins our carefully laid plans. She sees it as the very thing that saved her from herself.
And she concludes that thought by saying, His grace sheltered me. There's that word again, shelter, wings, covering. She realizes she was never actually exposed to the elements, even back when she felt aimlessly alone.
So we have the journey, we have this massive reframing, and then we finally get to the finale. And the PDF source has a very specific instruction here that I do not want to gloss over.
The bold text.
Right near the end, in big bold letters, it just says, a cappella.
A cappella, which literally translates to in the manner of the chapel.
Which means, for our purposes, kill the music.
Mm-hmm.
No piano, no drums, no synth pad, just the raw human voice.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think she chose to end the song that specific way?
Think about the sheer vulnerability of that choice. When you have music playing behind you, you have a safety net.
Yeah.
The instruments carry a lot of the emotional weight. If your voice cracks or you miss a pitch, the piano covers it up. But when you go a cappella, you are entirely naked. It's just you and the dead air in the room.
It feels almost like a stress test of the statement she's making.
That's exactly what it is. She is stripping away all the artifice. She's gone from the dark road through the twisty path, and she has finally arrived at the throne. She doesn't even need the hand guiding her anymore at this point. She is standing there, fully present, on her own 2 feet.
And what is she saying in that dead silence? The transcript just shows her repeating it over and over again.
Here I am.
Here I am.
It basically becomes a chant, a meditation.
It's so interesting because here I am is usually the answer to a direct question, like a roll call in school.
Yeah.
Is Misty here? Here I am.
Or a divine summons.
Right.
In Scripture, when God calls a prophet, the standard automatic response is, Here I am. It signifies total readiness. It means I'm not hiding in the shadows anymore. I'm not wandering along, and I'm not wandering alone. I am right here. I am fully present.
And going back to that 66 BPM tempo we talked about at the top, if she was rushing this, repeating here I am 3 or 4 times, would sound frantic, like she was trying to convince herself.
Yeah.
But at this crawling speed, it forces the listener to just breathe with her.
It allows the heavy reality of her arrival to really sink in. She isn't trying to convince us or herself anymore. She's just existing in the gratitude. She's finally resting.
It's a pretty incredible narrative arc for what looks, on paper anyway, like a very simple worship ballad.
It truly is. It's a masterclass in using basic structure to tell a complex story. The tempo, the specific word choices, those frantic edits in the margin, they all point to this one big central idea. That you can actually trust the messy process of your life, even when it looks like a complete disaster.
Even when you're going left.
Especially when you're going left.
So let's just zoom out for a second and recap what we found in these 2 documents.
Yeah.
We started with a narrator who has seen a side of life that she hopes you never, ever see.
But instead of being bitter and angry about it, she actively refuses to regret the backward step. She realizes that the awful detour was, in fact, the destination.
We saw the actual struggle in the text itself, that subtle shift from wandering along to wandering alone, and that incredible battle between the poetic love and the tangible, desperate hand.
Which showed us that her journey wasn't just some intellectual exercise. It was a desperate human need for connection. She needed a physical hand to hold in the dark.
And finally, we saw her totally reframe the dark days, not as a curse, but as wings covering her, protecting her until she was ready to stand up and sing a cappella.
It's a complete reconstruction of her own past. She didn't change what actually happened to her on that road. She just changed what it meant.
And that is really the power of doing a deep dive like this.
Yeah.
It makes you look at your own personal documents a little differently.
It certainly does.
So, as we wrap up this analysis of Misty Flowers' Here I Am, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to really chew on today. We talked a lot about that one specific line. Dark days were just their wings covering over me.
The ultimate reframe.
Right. So here is the challenge for you. If you pulled out the mental file on the absolute darkest year of your life, the time when you felt like you were wandering entirely alone, and you really look at it, wait, no, let me rephrase that. If you really examine that time, do you have the courage to rename that file?
Could you look at those creeping shadows and actually see a shelter instead of a prison?
It's a really hard question. But if left can truly be right, then maybe dark can be safe. Thanks for uncovering this one with us.
Always a pleasure.